Hello, Virgo. Sorry, I'm pulling up your notes. Hi. Okay, we're going to be talking about your December forecast. This is a month of misunderstandings, of some deep, intense love, some days of good luck. We're going to dive into all of it. Starting on the 1st, Mercury entered your 5th house. So Mercury is the planet of communication, speaking, talking, writing, using your voice, self-expression, attention to detail, getting from point A to point B, transportation, siblings. Really, it's going to boil down to communication and like using your voice, what you're talking about, how you're thinking about it, your ideas, where your brain is at, is going into your 5th house. So the 5th house is all about love, sex, romance, creativity, joy, pleasure. This is usually where you're going to be having a lot more fun, possibly having a new romantic connection, talking about or to people that you're dating. This can be conversations around pregnancy, around children, around things that you want to start doing for yourself, or creative and passion projects, or just being more social too, like hanging out with your friends, doing things that make you happy. On the 3rd, Venus in your 2nd house squared Pluto in your 5th house. So as it was making its way out of your 2nd house, it had to do this really intense moment between Pluto and your 5th house, which really brings attention to, again, those 5th house themes that we just discussed. So love, sex, money, or I'm sorry, not love, sex, money, love, sex, romance, pregnancy, creativity, joy, pleasure, all of those things coming into a little bit of a uncomfortable, maybe tense, challenging moment with your 2nd house of finances, money, belongings, possessions, values, etc. So I would say, because Venus and Pluto aspects typically bring a lot of intensity to either love or finances, and in your case it's kind of doubling down on finances because it's in your money house, or it was leaving your money house, there could have been some intense tension, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me today, between your investments, possessions, income, what belongs to you. This can even be things regarding like money and kids. It can be money and your romantic partners. It can be even just having like an intense conversation, or finding out the truth about something, or getting to the nitty-gritty, being a little bit of an investigator when it comes to how those two things overlap, money and love. Or it can be a little bit more esoteric and spiritual when it comes to like your personal boundaries, the things that you value, the things that are important to you, your standards, your self-worth, and how that reflects in the things that you want for yourself and the things that give you pleasure, or within your romantic prospects. That's a very short aspect though. It already happened the time that I'm recording this, so it's not anything to worry about. On the 4th, Venus entered your 3rd house. So right after that intense moment, it slid into your 3rd house, and Venus going through the 3rd house typically brings a sense of ease and pleasure and enjoyment, and even like the emphasis of romance or finances now to things that are a little bit more mundane in your everyday life. So the 3rd house is all about like the people, the things, the environments that are most familiar to you. This is the place that you get your coffee every morning. It's the people that you read on, Twitter every single day. It's the podcasts you listen to, the books that you read, the car that you drive, etc. So having Venus here can sort of make the everyday life feel a little bit more special and a boost in that. It can be anything like making your environment more aesthetic. It can be maybe having a little bit more ease when it comes to making your car payments, or like getting a nicer car. It can be that you're hanging out with people that you love a little bit more. Again, being more social, being more personable, saying yes to plans more can be good here. And you might just find yourself being a little bit more cerebrally stimulated. So reading a lot of books, having a lot of conversations, having a lot of ideas, etc. You might even be learning something new that you can monetize. I would also say that this can be like short trips. So going on vacations, going on a weekend getaway, exploring the city with friends. It's the holidays, people are home, things like that can be common. On the 5th, so today, Venus in your 3rd house is trining Saturn in your 7th house. So this is a really good aspect because we're combining. This is the thing. I took a tiny bit of my Adderall and I had coffee with it, and I'm not supposed to do that. And this is why, because I forgot to speak English. Venus is the planet of love, money, beauty, pleasure. We know this. We've already said it 3 times already because Venus is very active the first week of December, but it's things that, are pleasurable. Venus is typically going to bring a sense of like warmth or ease to the things that it transits. So when we have an aspect to Venus and Saturn, which is a little bit more serious and sober and disciplined and responsible, and maybe not all of the warm, fuzzy, feel-good feelings, but rather the necessary, I don't want to do this, but I know that I have to sort of vibes. When those two planets come together, it's actually quite benefic. It's beneficial. It wants to help you out in the sense that we're seeing a trine here. So it's a very positive, harmonious aspect. We have the good thing, we have the beneficial thing, we have that warm, cozy energy with Venus, but it's being supported by something that is still very stable, committed, disciplined, responsible, important, etc. So this can look like hard work paying off. This can look like something, because we're looking at your 3rd house and 7th house, like really working on your communication or your boundaries within your relationships and starting to see the fruits of your labor with that, or your efforts that you pour into those things paying off. I would say that this is a really good day to have an important conversation with somebody close to you, basically, whether that's romantic or not. It could be a romantic relationship, an interpersonal relationship, even a business partnership, clients, people that you work with on a day-to-day basis. This brings a really good sense of getting the important, necessary things done, but having very like beautiful, enjoyable results from it. So again, this can be support between everyday habits and friendships. Also, people that are very close to you, like friends, committed relationships, somebody that you're in a partnership with. Communication is beautiful today. It's very supportive. On the 7th, Neptune is going to station direct in your 7th house. So this has been retrograde since June 30th. So Neptune is the planet of like dreams, beauty, philosophy, spirituality. It's very beautiful. It's very ethereal. It's very intoxicating. But the darker side of Neptune is that it's typically this higher octave of pleasure and things that feel very good, because there's a deceptive nature to it. It can be quite manipulative. There can be some blurring of the lines. Think of like when you're on your favorite drug. We know that it's not great for us, but despite how great it feels, we know that it's actually doing some damage, or it's really blurring our sobriety, or it's really, messing with our senses. So that's the same sort of vibe here with Neptune, where it's like a promise of something that feels very good and almost romanticized, but usually for a reason that we can't fully see in the moment. So when we have Neptune go retrograde, sometimes this can bring like a sense of brain fog, a lack of clarity, while that spiritual and artistic, imaginative nature is still present. It can be sort of harder to work with and direct and handle. This can be like, having a very great imagination, but now we're having a lot of anxiety and paranoia over things that aren't real instead of coming up with like artistic visions. It can also be just general confusion, one foot in, one foot out. I kind of want this, but should I do this? And not being able to fully take action or execute. So having this in your relationship sector station direct, you might find that there is like a clearing of the veil. There is no longer like wool being pulled over your eyes, something that maybe you were dancing around or beating around the bush or not fully seeing clearly, whether that be intentionally or not, might now become crystal clear, where there are some, maybe even for some people, harsh truths that we need to accept. It's for the greater good, even if it does feel like you're getting this sobering slap of clarity and getting a reality check within your relationships and the people close to you. I think it's something that's ultimately helping you navigate forward more efficiently. On the 10th, Venus in your 3rd house is going to be opposite Jupiter in your 9th house. This is one of those very good luck days for everybody across the board, because both Venus and Jupiter are benefic, so they both want to give you good things and opportunities and things that feel good rather than give you problems. At the very worst, it can be a little bit functioning in excess, like overdoing something, over promising something, being a little bit too optimistic, or functioning in excess, overindulging. It's like going on a shopping spree and spending way too much money. It is like overeating and then getting sick, things like that. So I wouldn't like go Christmas shopping on this day. You might be doing that because with Venus in the 3rd, it's like you might be spending more money, you might be shopping more, you might be getting out there a little bit more. And that's not to say that you don't have the money you think you do, or you can't enjoy the process, but rather go in with a plan, because you might get carried away, especially if you're with friends or family or people that you just enjoy yourself with. But this is a really great day for friendships, for traveling, for social events, thinking bigger, getting outside of the box, expanding your horizons. Really good day to say yes to something that you typically wouldn't, in the sense of like something risky or something that you're typically afraid to do, or something that maybe would give you social anxiety and you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. Like that's a very good day for that sort of thing when it comes to the people, the things, and the environments that are familiar to you, and also the ones that are unfamiliar to you, but you're willing to sort of explore a little bit more now. On the 12th, there's going to be a new moon in your 4th house. So this is a new beginning, a chapter opening, a conception, of a new era when it comes to your fourth house of home, family, living situation, foundation, your roots, your ancestry, where you come from, and who you are right here in the most deep part of your chart. So to have a new moon here can be, as extreme as like you just moved into a new apartment and now you're like, oh my God, this is my new space. It can be renovating your home. It can be starting a new lease or like renewing a lease. It can be even just like, if it's not so literal when it comes to your living environment, there can be a new emotional beginning for you here that really touches on like who you are at the core, or your inner child, or your emotional needs, or your private life. There can also be new conversations happening with family, a new chapter starting, turning a new leaf. Anything like that can be very present here. On the 13th, there's going to be, Mercury is going to station retrograde in your 5th house. So Mercury, again, is the planet of speaking, talking, writing, using your voice. And on the 1st of the month, it entered into your 5th house. So from the beginning of the month, we were already sort of kind of having these conversations, your thoughts, your ideas, your intellectual energy was now focused on things that you want, creative projects, romance, or children. And now having it stationed retrograde can kind of take whatever you've been having stir up here the first 2 weeks of the month and bring it up for reconsideration. So we're either revisiting something, putting what we were wanting on the back burner. It can be sort of hashing out the details of something in a new way that we weren't seeing entirely clearly the first way around. I would just say it's generally giving you a chance to slow down and kind of reassess what you're thinking or feeling or decision making when it comes to these themes in your life, especially if it's like selfish decisions. And when I say selfish, I don't mean the negative connotation of like, oh, you're being selfish, shame on you, but rather like things that just affect you because you want them. It's like, did I really want this thing that I thought that I wanted at the beginning of the month, or is this something that I need to like slow down and make sure that this is what I really want? That's something that can be present here. On the 17th, the sun is going to be in your 4th house and it's going to be squaring Neptune in your 7th house. So again, squares aren't the worst thing in the world, but they typically give you a little bit of discomfort to inspire you to take some action, make a decision, execute something, change, move forward, make some progress. It's not just discomfort for no reason. So having this between your 4th house of home, family, and your living situation, and then Neptune, so some confusing, blurry, maybe romanticized energy in your 7th house of relationships, there's something that is maybe not fully connecting here between like the person that you're dating and then your family maybe not entirely getting along. There can be some sort of secret or missing information, or something just is not adding up when it comes to the details of your living situation between you and your roommate. It can just be an overlap of those two themes, maybe even something where who you are and your identity based off of how you were raised and your roots and the way that you were parented or something is now coming into a little bit of a haze with the way that you communicate within your relationships, again, whether that be romantic or not. So I would just say to trust your intuition when it comes to any overlap between family and romance, living situation, again, private life, and the people that you work very closely with, regardless of the relationship. On the 22nd, the sun is going to enter your 5th house. So we had Mercury, again, enter here on the 1st. That brings the mind there, brings the conversations there, talking to people, thinking about it, journaling about it, having ideas about it, reading about it. And then the sun entering here is joining the party, and it's bringing the warmth, the attention, the spotlight. There's a little bit more now of a focal point on this area of the chart. So slowly, one by one, the quicker moving planets kind of go through each area of the chart. And for this month, for you in particular, a lot of that is going to be on 5th house matters. So again, love, sex, romance, pregnancy, creativity, selfishness, personal joy, things that you want, things that make you happy. On the 23rd, Mercury is going to go, it's still in its retrograde cycle, so it's actually going to move from your 5th house where it's currently retrograde and head back into your 4th house. So it's going to be retracing its steps, and it's taking these two areas of the chart and saying these two things have to do with each other, and both of them need to be reconsidered in relation to one another. So the 5th house, love, sex, romance, creativity, pleasure, joy, entertainment too. Like if you're a creator or an influencer, this is singing, dancing, art, music, comedy, anything like that, is now being up for consideration since what day? The 13th, since the middle of the month. So between the 13th and then the 23rd, so you have about 10 days there, all those themes that were being reconsidered in that 5th house are now also involving the 4th house. So there's something that like you forgot on the way, or you need to reconsider, or you need to return back to the drawing board in relation to how those fifth house themes now also have to be revisited with home, family, living situation, your core, who you are at the very, most private area of who you are as a person. So what would be that? I would say that this can be, again, an overlap between two different characters. So like someone that you are romantically seeing and family, and both of these things in relation to one another need to be reconsidered, whether that be conflicting or not. It can be children, pregnancy, or children that you already have, and reconsidering that within the family. Do I want my children around them all the time? Should I set some more boundaries here? Is this someone I want to conceive with? Is this like a good partner that my parents agree with? If it's not romantic, I would say any sort of desire that you have right now that you're heading towards might be something where you need to reflect on who you really are authentically at the core, and assess if what you are trying to head towards, that desire for yourself, is something that you actually want, or that you think you need, or it's, you're on that timeline, or you think that's the right next step, like that sort of thing here as well. For some people, it might be literal, where like your living situation is just changing, or some details that you had about like a pregnancy scare is something that you don't have to worry about anymore, like things like that. Private life, again, romance, creativity, children, personal desires, etc. On the 25th, Venus is going to trine now Neptune in your 7th house. So we were having some issues at the beginning of the month, right, with Venus. Did we have a square between the two, right? There was a square between the Sun and Neptune. So again, between your 4th house and then your 7th house. And then by the time we get to the 25th, there's now a supportive aspect between your 3rd house and your 7th house. So the first half of the month, it looked like issues between home and relationships, or your private life, your living situation, etc. But by the time we get to the 27th, it looks like there is maybe some more ease in communicating the details of things to make them go forward a little bit more smoothly. There's some sort of supportive energy in the air between the way that you're using your voice, your attention to detail, connecting all of the dots, and that working well with somebody that you're working closely with. So whether it be the same person or situation that you're working something out with, it looks like somebody or something kind of comes in and offers you a solution. This is very good, again, for emotional and expansive support between your environment, close friends, close relationships, and communicating with the people that you're working with a shared goal. There might also be some things too throughout the month for some people in regards to transportation, car issues, just getting around, or just your general like day-to-day life and habits and routines maybe being a little bit wonkier than they are typically. On the 27th, we have a full moon in Cancer in your 11th house. So this is going to be an ending or a closing of a chapter to something regarding your big dreams, your friends, your sense of the belonging in the world, your groups, communities, organizations, anything from a political party to a church to a Facebook group, anything like that you are a part of is kind of facing like a full circle moment. So full moons don't always have to be these ridiculously dramatic endings. This one is in Cancer, so sometimes it can look like a little bit of an emotional outburst, or just across the board a little bit more of an emotional, sort of sensitive or intuitive kind of big moment, boiling point with that full moon energy. It's also going to be at 4 degrees, which is a Cancer degree, so it's really doubling down on that water element. But it's also cardinal energy, which is like very go, go, go. While you're finishing one thing, you're probably finishing this and closing this out because you're already on to the next thing. So having a full moon in your 11th house can sometimes actually look quite beneficial, in the sense that the 11th house is like your bigger dreams. It's your goals. It's your aspirations. It's like things that you put on your vision board. And a full moon sometimes here can look like you wrapping up the loose ends of like a project you've been very passionate about, and it's finally coming to a close, and you get to celebrate it. You get to present it to the world. It could be something like going viral on social media. It can be the closing of a friendship, or just saying, I love you guys. This was like a great season of my life, but I just don't really resonate with like surrounding myself with this sort of group anymore. It doesn't have to be something awful. It's actually going to be a callback to July 17th as well. So if you want any extra context, anything that you might have started or began or started to conceive at that point in the year, so in the middle of summer or so, is something that's just sort of again, coming full circle now. So this can also be an ending or a closing to a chapter with friends, support from other people, and something where you're just kind of wrapping up this area of the chart. On the 27th, so the same day actually, Chiron is going to be stationing direct in your 8th house. So Chiron isn't a planet, it's an asteroid that has to do with, sensitivity, wounds, where there's maybe some unresolved feelings of pain and humiliation, or general just like woundedness woundedness, like pouring salt in an open wound, something that maybe hasn't fully healed yet. And that's also going to be stationing direct in your 8th house. So having it retrograde throughout the summer, similarly to Neptune, it's going to be different for everybody. It's been retrograde since July 23rd. If you want to look back and kind of assess if there's been any consistent change in your life since summer around 8th house matters, which is like shared finances, investments, how you overlap with other people, both financially, energetically, contractually. The 8th house, I always say, is less about borrowing $20 from somebody, from a friend, and more about like the more complicated finances of life. So like taking out a loan, paying taxes, having debt that you're working with, student loans, things like that, signing a lease with somebody. It's usually an agreement where you're going in on something with somebody, whether that be like a marriage contract or, inheriting something from a lease, from a will or an estate, or, a trust fund or something like that. But if it's more energetic, it can be the trust between you and somebody else, whether that be a trust, from an under the table deal with like your employer, or something where you're getting an extra month free from your landlord, or something where you're even sleeping with somebody and you're starting to kind of build a little bit of a more intimate connection with them. It can also be your personal transformation. So having Chiron stationed direct here is showing that where you might have had some wounds here, which by the way, Chiron moves very slowly. This is not new energy at all. It goes forward and it goes direct every single year. But having it stationed direct, again, you might see a shift in your energy when it comes to maybe being more prepared for, or more willing to heal, or more willing to have what is progress in this healing process when it comes to personal transformation, trusting other people, building intimacy, being able to have a shared investment with somebody else, going in on something with somebody. All of those things are going to be very present. On the 28th, Mercury retrograde in your 4th house. Oh, this is the day that I'm not excited for everybody. On the 28th, Mercury retrograde will still be in your 4th house of home, family, living situation, but it's going to conjoin Mars. Mars is the planet of action, assertion, aggression, how we go after things, how we stick up for ourselves, how we fight for what we believe in, how we defend ourselves, how we just initiate things in general and like go after our own desires. So whenever Mercury and Mars meet, typically when Mercury is direct, it's really good for like defending yourself, for confronting something, for initiating some sort of detail and conversation. With it retrograde, Mercury is already not, loving the energy because it's not functioning in its smoothest sort of ability with it in that retrograde cycle. Putting it in Sagittarius, it's not so happy here because sometimes Mercury in Sagittarius is a little bit too conflated or exasperated or exaggerated, or telling a little bit of a white lie, stretching the truth, being very over dramatic in its delivery. And then to have that in a conjunction to Mars, it's being very loud and wrong, or it's being quite dramatic in the way that you're communicating. It's going far and wide and like blowing things out of proportion is what I imagine here, with it also in a square to Neptune, being again blurring the lines, being confusing, causing any sort of lack of clarity, missing information. And then in a more like malicious sense, telling lies, being manipulative, being deceptive on purpose, intentionally. It's gonna be a very there's going to be a lot of, woo-woo energy in the air. I don't think people are going to be thinking clearly, communicating clearly, and it's like you are violently defending something that is not entirely true, or you are tenaciously going after something that is being sold to you very inaccurately, and therefore maybe again functioning on sheer optimism when something isn't exactly what it seems. Having this between your 4th house and your 7th house, again, it's very 1 foot in, 1 foot out when it comes to making decisions or having conversations in regards to the home, family, property, living situation, relationships, people closest to you, business partnerships. All of those themes are going to be a little bit conflated that day. So just tread lightly. If you can hold off any permanent decisions, I would do that, especially when it comes to contracts with other people. On the 29th, Venus is going to enter your 4th house of home, family, living situation, property, and private life. This is the other big area of the chart that's going to be ignited for you throughout December. 4th house and 5th house, having Venus come here Again, it's joining the party. We have Mercury here, we have the sun here, and now Venus is actually thankfully working in our favor a little bit because it's probably going to ease any tension and things that have been complicated throughout the first 3 weeks of the month. On the 31st, the last day of the year, Jupiter is going to station direct in your 9th house. So Jupiter is the planet of good luck, good fortune, windfalls of success, opportunities. Jupiter just typically grants a good day. I think oftentimes it is sold to us as like, oh, you're going to win the lottery whenever Jupiter is aspected. And there's certainly some good luck in the air. Like, for example, on the 10th, when we have Venus opposite Jupiter, play the lotto, take a little bit of a risk. Good luck is probably on your side with that. Having it stationed direct in your 9th house, which has everything to do with like traveling, faith, philosophy, education. Again, getting outside your comfort zone, opportunities, exploring uncharted territory, being curious, going back to school, anything like that. Again, any sort of lack of clarity, lack of progress, maybe lack of opportunity in regards to education, traveling, all of those things might start to resume what is regularly scheduled programming. So the thing that's interesting about this is it's actually stationing direct at 5 degrees, which was the same degree as the Taurus lunar eclipse that we had on October 28th. So we know that eclipses are typically like a full moon on crack. In this case, it was a lunar eclipse. So it was a full moon, an ending, a closing of a chapter. But this closing of a chapter was the door shutting to a chapter that started way back in late 2021. So if you think about, this is something I would discuss more in like a personal reading to see how it would be affecting you specifically. But think back to late like November, December 2021, a chapter started in regards to traveling, faith, philosophy, education, personal belief in yourself, faith, the way that you view the world, again, speaking, talking, writing, using your voice, sharing your opinions on a public level, anything like that began in a very big way for you back in late 2021. This lunar eclipse that happened on October 28th was the closing of the chapter to that. The reason that's relevant is having Jupiter station at the same degree as that ending is that this is sort of the replacement or the replenishment or the fulfillment of something new taking the place of whatever you closed out back then. It's like a baton pass of you got rid of that, you closed that chapter, and now this is going to fill its spot. So a lot going on this month. I think that again, with a lot of the focus being pretty much in the more private areas of your chart, in the sense that, you know, maybe not everyone on social media or that you work with or that you see every, you know, once a month or something knows what's going on with you right now. But it looks like there's a lot of movement in regards to the people you're closest to, your private life, your inner world, your living situation, your family, and then the people that you're dating or romantically interested in, or your children or possibility of children. So that's what it looks like your forecast is for the month. If you have any questions, you can drop them below. I'd love to hear what you guys are going through. I hope you have an amazing end of the year. If you want to book a personal reading to dive into this a little bit deeper, everything that you need is going to be in the description below, and you can check it out at Kmoney.biz. I hope this helped you guys, and thank you so much for watching.